most fun part for me was getting to know everyone.
You get to speak and communicate with students around your age all over the world, which is a really special opportunity that we don't often get.
I really enjoyed it.
For me, the most challenging part was when we had to shoot the town video. I think I have like half an hour of footage because I just played that one part over and over again.
Me and my mom were taking multiple takes.
Expressing myself because I'm not really good at it.
Trying to figure out what times the deadlines were in my time.
At home, I only talk a lot of Dutch. So when you were all talking English, I was like, oh my gosh.
When I laugh, all of us have to laugh. That was fun.
The most challenging part was when you had to keep a straight face. I never keep straight faces, and it is very hard for me to do that because I'm always fidgeting.
And the most challenging part was also keeping a serious face and also a happy face and a laughing face because I could only make a smile.
So some of the sort of like labels we were thinking were that teenagers don't listen, that they're rebellious and lazy and reckless.
Too young to understand anything.
Addicted to video games, lazy, noisy.
I would think that we are maybe annoying, which is kind of bothering because we're not that annoying.
They think we're not smart enough, but that's not true because they don't actually give us a chance.
Adults think that we're way too dramatic and they don't really perceive our problems as important as they really are, but that also leads to us not being taken seriously. And I think that's the biggest problem, really.
You know you want the government or important people to change the way they are with whatever, but it was pretty challenging to be put on the spot and actually asked, well, what do you want to change, like specifically?
Children often are scared to say their opinions because maybe their parents or other adults aren't supportive.
Adults don't think about our lives in the future, and I don't think they know how we're destroying the environment around us.
Feeling like I'm able to talk to people in power and feeling like I have a voice to actually talk to them, because usually it feels like you can protest or you can say something, but it never really gets through. But this, I feel more in power.
We dream of a world where kids are involved in government decisions.
Where big organizations like the UN make space for kids to talk about things.
Where young people can speak their minds without being afraid.
Where every adult respects and has time for every child's question.
We make use of social media to raise kids' voices.
Where people hear and respect children's opinions.
We dream of a world where adults give young people's opinions a chance.
My name is Dream. My name is Charlie.
My name is Dream. My name is Astra.
My name is Dream. My name is May.
My name is Jackson.
My name is David.
My name is Ashley.
Camila.
Karim.
Miles.
Dana.
Patrick.
Lily.
Riley.
My name is Zoya.
My name is Arjun.
Zanira.
Safia. My name is Dream. My name is Juana. I am Jokus.
I'm caring.
I am ambitious.
I am supportive.
I am devious.
I am daring. Limitless.
I'm lively.
I am playful.
I am also confident
and jolly.
I am marvelous.
I'm perfect.
I am rare.
I am radiant.
I am zany.
Zesty.
Joyful.
And I am the only me.
My name is Dominica. My name is Dream.
This is a picture of me.
This is a picture of me.
Just because I am Chinese doesn't mean I am bad at English.
This is a picture of me.
Just because I'm white does not mean I am not aware and mad at the systemic racism in the US.
This is a picture of me.
Just because I am brown doesn't mean I'm a threat. I am not incredibly smart. I am not underprivileged. I am human. I am considerate.
Really belong here. I love games so that it helps me. I can be active. This also helps us in a lot of thinking skills.
I love nature so much. It is 10 minutes from my house.
This is where I feel I belong. It was a call with friends I did a few days ago, and I feel welcomed and loved here. So
this is my little group of close friends. They're like my second family. They make me feel loved.
This picture shows my home, and this is where I feel happy when I'm with my family.
Even though we're from Beijing, we chose Earth to be where we felt we belong to. We are global citizens and here to contribute to the world as a whole.
We come from a place of red buses, busy and packed.
And the smell of wet dirt after a rainy night.
We come from a place of hushed voices, the taste of sugar, the feeling of spice.
Exciting football match and a clean swimming pool.
I'm from sunlight in the morning and beautiful scenes around me.
I come from a place of red dirt, summer, crystal clear waters, and salty sweat dripping in my eyes.
From adventurous goofball dad and caring, loving mom.
And wash your hands before eating anything.
From generous friends who are always willing to help us.
People that are humble and always suggest to help each other.
From Monsieur Fahrenheit and Madame Cord.
And getting the best results in the class.
We are from delicious foods that bring us joy.
And a good game of sport that makes us feel excited.
2. Screaming to people.
What do you want?
I am from having nightmares and not doing what I like.
I come from wondering if any of my dreams will actually come true. But we are not
where we come from, but where we are going.
We dream of a world where important people aren't filled with greed.
Where people reduce, reuse, recycle.
Where animals and humans live in harmony.
We dream of a world where all children get to go to school.
Where everyone respects one another.
Where everyone has food and a home.
We dream of a world where life matters.
I think people in my community should be more aware of climate change and its consequences.
The issue in our community is the poor handling of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Gold mining done, and after mercury is used,
modernize our local market.
Of a polluted Sydney beach.
5 years of war in Yemen causes violent children in a remarkable way.
How can I help?
If you could have like a group of young people have representatives there, like be representatives of all kids.
By raising money for organizations that help adults and teens with drug usage.
Could help by creating an animal foundation.
My strengths and talents that could help with this are I'm a good public speaker,
I'm good with
I
people.
can only do drawings and art stuff.
We're intelligent and we can bring a new perspective.
Japanese language and my network of connections.
How am I going to get there? I'm going to get there by using my ability to change habits with my
Curate
access.
various interviews with people around the city to find out their experiences.
I will ask my school rector to set up a robotic club.
I can get there by having perseverance, being committed to changing my community.
As teenagers, we could make posters that spread the message.
Posters, maybe also.
Posters, yeah.
And also get some adults on our side.
Organizing the meeting with the community people.
Ask them what they would like to change.
To demand the peace of all in Yemen. That's it. That's all I want.
This world is our future, and we should also be a part in creating our future. We're the ones who are going to live in this world, so we don't want them to make all the decisions.
Our opinion matters. Yeah, they all know that next time to give us also a chance to.
People would be saying, wow, they really took their future into their own hands.
We dream of a world where every child's dream is possible.
We dream of a world where every child's dream is possible.
We dream of a world
where every child's dream is possible.
Every child's dream is possible.
My dream is to become an excellent writer.
To become an architect who can design many futuristic and awesome structures.
To become a president.
I want to become a pediatrician so that I can help other people not go through the pain of losing someone they love.
My dream is to be a successful actor so I can use my platform to inspire change.
My dream is to become a nurse and make people happy.
To become a successful and famous lawyer.
Like, how do I balance multiple things all at once? That's my dream. My dream is to balance who I am with who I want to be.
My dream is to become a pilot.
Is to make people feel emotion in huge and colorful ways with my art.
My dream is to be the greatest YouTuber on the world.
My dream is to ride my bike in a polluted free area.
My personal dream is to be an artist because I really love arts.
My dream is to play any kind of sport.
My dream is to find a lifelong pursuit to which I could devote myself.
My dream is to have a Peruvian shelter for street animals.
My dream is to become a scientist.
To perform on Broadway and at least be singing for the rest of my life.
My dream is that the whole world will unite as one.
My dream is hope.
I dream to be a famous football player.
Our dream is to build our country and make it more beautiful.
I've never seen my guiding light. The clouds in front of me won't ever let me see. I've grown so weary of the night.
Ketika ku cemas hari demi hari, tak ada satupun hal yang pasti. Beribu ketakutan menggema di telinga, dan aku lelah mendengarnya. So give me peace enough, peace enough, peace enough.
Bernyanyilah, menarilah, marilah kita rayakan.
Rayakanlah, gembiralah, tertawa itu bahagia. Tersenyumlah, menarilah, bahagia kita semua. Peace enough for all mankind. Healthy body, happy mind. Faith and love, the world as one. Peace day has been. Come into my joy. Come into my pain. Come, you be a friend of mine. I'll be the same. Come into my joy. Come into my pain. Come, you be a friend of mine. I'll be the same. Bersukalah denganku, berdukalah denganku. Jadilah sahabatku dan ku sahabatmu. Come, you be a friend of mine. I'll be the same.
Welcome to San Francisco, the birthplace of the United Nations. My name is Steve Riffkin, and I've been involved with Peace Child for many years, here in Washington, D.C., and in Moscow, Russia, where later you'll be meeting my good friend and fellow musician, Stas Naumann. This is the Opera House in San Francisco, where diplomats from 50 nations drafted the UN Charter in 2 short months between April and June of 1945. The outside of the Opera House here on Van Ness Avenue hasn't changed very much since 1945, but the interior has been completely refurbished. This is how it looks today. This is how it looked in 1945. The Opera House and the Veterans Building are next door to one another, and it was in the Veterans War Memorial Hall that they all signed the UN Charter on June 26, 1945. Edward Stettinius for the United States, a very young Andrei Gromyko for the USSR, and Jan Christian Smuts for South Africa. Smuts was the one who had written the famous preamble.
We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind. To regain faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women and of nations large and small, and to promote social progress and better standards of life for all in larger freedom.
Hi, my name is Lucia Efros, and for many years I was the administrator working with Steve Riffkin for Peace Child in the United States. I'm both delighted and honored to be part of this important 75th anniversary of the United Nations. One of the most unusual events during the drafting of the Charter was when the 500 diplomats from all over the world climbed on buses outside of the Opera House and traveled across the Golden Gate Bridge to Muir Woods, where here in Cathedral Grove they held a memorial service to the U.S. President Roosevelt, chief architect of the United Nations, who died just 13 days before the UN Charter Conference opened. A small plaque commemorates the event. Jan Smuts gave the address that day, saying,
"Here, among these giant redwoods, this great man will find fitting and congenial company, the company of giants in a temple of peace, a cathedral, many of the pillars of which were standing when Magna Carta was written, President Roosevelt's personal history was an inspiration to all who suffer under misfortune, a call to use adversity as a stepping stone to a higher self. He was the personification of the best of America and the carrier of a message of hope and good cheer from the New World to the Old. Europe lies in ruins, and if the United Nations is to last, it must restore Europe to a condition of spiritual, political, and material order. This work of binding up the wounds of war through the effective implementation of Roosevelt's vision will be the greatest monument that the nations can build to him and to the America that he represented.
If President Roosevelt was the architect of the UN, his wife Eleanor was the first United States ambassador to the organization and one of its greatest servants.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jane Alexander, and I'm delighted to be paying tribute to this evening's first great hero of the UN's 75 history, Eleanor Roosevelt, a lady whom I had the privilege of playing in 2 TV dramas some years ago. Well, whatever you feel about her, she was a towering figure of the 20th century, the first US ambassador to the UN, chair of the commission that created the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, lifelong campaigner for the rights and freedoms of the dispossessed. I'm going to read some extracts from the great speech she gave in Paris on the struggle for human rights. But first, let me tell you a little bit about her. Her marriage to Franklin produced 6 children and made her the longest-serving First Lady of the United States. Because of her husband's paralysis, she often represented him at public meetings and gave campaign speeches on his behalf. She also encouraged him in his dream of setting up a United Nations organization. But she was her own woman with strong views of her own. She wrote a weekly newspaper column for most of her adult life, as well as doing hundreds of radio programs and public speeches. It was her work in drafting the UN Declaration of Human Rights for which she will be best remembered. It was not easy, but her experience, her charm, her determination got it passed in the UN General Assembly. As the Chinese representative remembered, she was marvelous, really. From the very first days, she led us, cajoled us, and for some of us, well, mothered us. The Soviet delegate was perhaps closer to the truth when he said of her, "Never have I seen naivete and cunning so gracefully blended." I like to think that no man could have done what she did. It was an impossible task. Here's how she explained those difficulties in that famous Paris speech. "I have come this evening to talk with you on one of the greatest issues of our time, the preservation of human freedom. I have chosen to discuss it here in France because here on this soil, the roots of human freedom have long ago struck deep and been richly nourished. It was here the Declaration of the Rights of Man was proclaimed, and the great slogans of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity, fired the imagination of women and men. Like them, the basic premise of the UN Charter is that the peace and security of all human beings is dependent on mutual respect for the rights and freedoms of all. The battle we are fighting in the world today is for the preservation of human freedom for the individual. This battle was fought at the time of the French Revolution and at the time of the American Revolution. And we are fighting this battle again today, as the issue of human liberty is as decisive now as it was then. Stalin's chief legal advisor, Andrei Vyshinsky, told me long ago that there was no such thing as individual freedom. All freedom, he said, for the individual is conditioned by the rights of other individuals. That, of course, I granted. But, I said, we approach the question from a different point of view. Our declaration aims to make men and women, not governments, more free. The totalitarian state typically places the will of the people second to decrees promulgated by a few men at the top. It's not going to be easy to attain unanimity with respect to our different concepts of government and human rights. It is now, as always, our hope that despite the wide differences in approach we face in the world today, we can, through honest discussion and negotiation, with mutual good faith in the principles of the UN Charter, arrive at a common basis of understanding. As one of the delegates from the United States, I pray Almighty God that we may win, here in this beautiful city of Paris, another victory for the rights and freedoms of all women and men. When she died, Adlai Stevenson said, "What other single human being has touched and transformed the lives of so many? She would rather light a candle than curse the darkness, and her glow has warmed the world."
I have a vision.
That the work pursuing peace and upholding peace throughout the world is needed now more than ever. Please continue your work. Please continue pushing the dream that Dr. Martin Luther King had.
Dag Hammarskjold was not only a great diplomat, but he was also a wonderful poet, a spiritual thinker, a philosopher, and also, tragically, one of the 3,928 individuals who've given their lives in the service of the UN. Dag Hammarskjold was a modest, shy man who never expected to become UN Secretary General. In truth, he was a compromise candidate chosen for his reputation in the Foreign Ministry of Sweden as a harmless economist and an unobtrusive technician. He was amazed when he was appointed on March the 31st, 1953, telling the journalist who broke the news to him, "Your watch must be fast. It's not yet April Fool's Day." He turned out to be a collegiate leader, an effortless empathizer, and a brilliant negotiator. After a couple of years, he inspired such confidence in UN member governments that, faced with any insoluble impasse, they were all happy to say, "Leave it to Dag." He arrived at the UN at a propitious time. Stalin had just died, President Eisenhower had just arrived in the White House, and with him, the prospect of an armistice in the Korean War. The scene was set for someone to revive the confidence of governments in the potential of the United Nations. The UN's greatest good fortune, and the world's, was that this someone turned out to be Dag Hammarskjold. His first success was to negotiate the release of the American airmen who'd been shot down during the Korean War and imprisoned as spies in the People's Republic of China. There were many others, and his bravery inspired confidence and respect, even amongst those who disagreed with him. In a famous scene in the UN General Assembly, Nikita Khrushchev demanded that he resign. Hammarskjold refused, and all the other diplomats present leapt to their feet in a standing ovation. His colleague and biographer, Brian Urquhart, wrote this epitaph. Dag Hammarskjold gave the United Nations a new status. He provided the most dynamic and striking leadership any international organization has ever had. He personified the UN Charter's ideals in action and carried the UN's implicit challenge to national sovereignty further than anyone else was able to before or since. He perfected a style of active but quiet diplomacy that showed that one man, if sufficiently spirited and courageous, could stand up for principle against even the greatest powers. From the day he arrived in New York with what he described as a strong feeling of personal insufficiency, to the night he died, he was that most unusual of creatures, a truly good man. His integrity was absolute. His intellect was acute and subtle. He inspired loyalties and affections of remarkable intensity and duration. President Kennedy's epitaph was shorter. He called him, quite simply, the greatest statesman of our century. Markings, Hammarskjold's book of spiritual poetry, was discovered and published after his death. I'll finish with one of his more famous poems, one which gives a sense of the strain that all UN servants suffer, none more so than Hammarskjold himself. Tired and lonely, so tired the heart aches. Meltwater trickles down the rocks. The fingers are numb. The knees tremble. It is now that you must not give in. On the path of the others are resting places, places in the sun where they can meet. But this is your path, and it is now that you must not fail. Weep if you can. Weep, but do not complain. You did not choose the way. The way chose you. And you must be thankful.
So listen to me, hear the words that I say. We live in one world, so our home is the same. The same sun is our fire, the same clouds give us rain. So whatever you may desire, our future's the same. So open your eyes, take the truth as it stands. We have but one earth, so we must share the land. The same moon is our lantern, the same sky is our roof. So whatever your reason, go follow the truth. Say not that you are Christian, Muslim or Jew. Say not that you are red or that I am blue. Say only I am man, and I want to live in peace in this here our home. Let all war cease. For where would we go if this world we destroy? There's only one home this world to enjoy. The same earth fills our hunger, and we all breathe the air. So change your desires. This world we must share. Say not that you are rich or that you are poor. Say not that you are less or that you are more. Say only I am man, and I want to live in peace in this here our world. Let all war cease in this here our world. Let all wars cease.
Excuse me. Is there a problem I can help you with?
Well, that depends. Who are you?
My name is Kofi Annan. I'm the Secretary General of the United Nations. Hello.
We're the General Masters of Sesame Street.
Yeah, you got that right. And what is the problem?
I want to sing it.
I believe that you sang it last time, Zoe. I really think that it's my turn.
No, it's my turn.
No. I should sing it because I am so cute.
What about me? I'd like to try.
Wait a minute. You have no problem.
No?
No. Why don't you sing it all together? Let's sing the alphabet all together.
Together?
Together.
Okay.
That's so crazy. It might just work. Let's try it.
Okay. Yes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Let me just say a few words about the world Phoebe will be growing up in. What a wonderful time to be a little girl. Nothing need hold her back. From nursery to school to college and adulthood, she will not have to face the old barriers of gender, race, or religion. Opportunity, knowledge, and friendship will be hers for the asking. But first, Phoebe, and all of us, must overcome today's world of great uncertainty, in which none of us can feel truly safe, from violence, from epidemic disease, from climate change, or a host of other dangers that have no respect for national borders. Within her lifetime, Phoebe could see the world change so that no child will any longer have to go to bed hungry. No child would have to risk her health by drinking dirty water. All children would benefit from electricity, basic sanitation, primary health care, and education. And above all, every child would have a reasonable chance of living life to its full potential. As individual godparents, we are promising today to protect and guide Phoebe during the years when she is vulnerable, so that in due time, as an adult, she will reach her full potential in her faith and in her life. But let's also, all of us, make a collective promise to do whatever we can to make this world safe for little girls everywhere, so that every human being has that same chance to achieve her full potential.
My name is Phoebe Malloch-Brown, and I was that very special little girl being christened that day. It's definitely hard for me to sum up Kofi. Obviously, his career speaks for itself in proving how amazing he was. However, to me, he was so much more than this. Throughout my life, he was one of the people I looked up to the most. He was always writing me sweet letters, and despite his time-consuming career, he never forgot a birthday. However, the most memorable thing that Kofi taught me is the importance of being kind, helping others, and always being thankful for what we have. As my dad always told me, Kofi believed in families, and above all, believed that the world was one big family. Kofi Annan was hamstrung by the inherent flaw of his position. He was a secular pope, a figure of moral authority, bereft with any means other than persuasion to enforce the high standards he articulated. Despite the fact that he had no battalions or vast budgets to enforce the policies he knew the world should be following, or perhaps because he didn't, the Nobel Committee decided to award him and the United Nations its Nobel Peace Prize in 2001. Here he is making his Nobel acceptance speech, which he starts by talking about another very special little girl, a little girl born in Afghanistan.
I began my address with a girl born in Afghanistan today. Even though her mother would do all in her power to protect her and sustain her, there is 1 in 4 risk that this girl will not live to see her 5th birthday. Whether she does is just one of the tests of our common humanity, of our belief in our individual responsibility for our fellow men and women. But it is the only test that matters. Remember this girl, then our larger aims to fight poverty, prevent conflict, or cure disease will not seem distant or impossible.
I hope that you will all remember Kofi as the kind and lovely man that I remember, but much more. I hope that you will remember his instructions to us as a human family, and that 75 years hence, we will live in a world that has followed those instructions. Thank you, Kofi, for your inspiration, and thank you all for listening.
I was a child who ran full of laughter. I was a child who lived for today. My eyes smiles. I was a child for a day.
We were the children who sang in the morning. We were the children who laughed at the sun, who listened to those who spoke with their wisdom.
كنا أطفالاً ذات يوم.
But we're getting older as time goes by. A little older with every day. We were the children of yesterday. We are the men who worry of nothing. We are the men who fight without aim. We listen to no one, yet speak of our wisdom. We are the pawns in the game.
We're getting older as time goes by, a little older with every day. We were the children
of yesterday. كنت صغيرا أجري في الحواري. كنت صغيرا أعيش في سلام. My eyes full of sunshine,
My heart full of smiles.
I was a child for a day.
We're getting older
as
time goes by,
a little older with every day.
We were the children
of yesterday.
I want to tell you about Jim Grant, a UNICEF leader in the UN, a visionary and a most practical man for getting things done. Jim was born in China and lived in China for his first 17 years with many Chinese friends speaking Mandarin, very much in the culture. When he was 17, he came back to the United States. He went to university. He knew he wanted to work internationally. Jim, in 1980, was appointed executive director of UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. UNICEF was involved with education, with health, especially education for girls, children in especially difficult circumstances, children in war, children in crisis situations. Jim added a new focus to UNICEF because at that time 15 million children were dying every year of readily preventable causes. And Jim said we should focus on actions that would reduce child mortality. And there were 4: encouragement of breastfeeding for better nutrition, immunization to prevent children getting polio or measles or other killing diseases, oral rehydration, that was to deal with diarrhea. You may think diarrhea is just an annoyance when it happens. It was killing 5 million children a year. And the other thing was monitoring children, bringing children to clinics and getting them weighed. Jim had another idea. Let us have goals, not just encouragement of those things, but 80% of children in each country and on average in the world should be immunized. And so from the 1982 to 1990, this gave a focus, goals to measure how UNICEF was doing. By 1990, 80% of children in developing countries had been immunized. Child deaths had fallen by 3 million a year, from 15 to 12 million. And Jim then had another idea. We should celebrate, but we should set new goals for the 1990s. And so Jim did something which the UN had never done before, have a summit meeting with heads of state, prime ministers. We even had one king to the meeting. That had never happened before. And people expected, well, if you're going to have a summit meeting, you must discuss trade or economic or political issues. No, Jim said, we should focus on the most important, children. And by then, the UN itself had discovered that goals were important. And so in 2000, the UN set, under Kofi Annan's leadership, the Millennium Development Goals, and in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals. Jim Grant died in 1995. Today it's 2020. I wonder if Jim was alive today, what he'd be saying we needed to do. Well, first he'd be saying we need an international perspective, and too many countries tackling COVID are just looking at themselves, not looking at the wider picture. Secondly, Jim would be saying we need to think internationally with a strong United Nations, stronger than today, with the support of countries all around the world. Mostly the developing countries do support the UN. It's the richer countries who think they can do without it. And third and finally, we need leadership. Jim Grant showed leadership. You don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. You look at the situation, you see what you can offer, and you offer it and lead. And that actually is a lesson which every one of us can learn and adopt. You can be a leader. You can have a vision for the future, working with others, finding teammates with whom you can work to achieve a better situation. He was a fantastic leader. He was a visionary, but in a very practical way.
A step is all you need right now. Accept that love's the greatest power. A force that makes life beautiful, abides in each and every one. Love will teach you this. A kiss is what there is. A touch when you hold your lover's hand.
first sense is a memory of his cheerfulness and this infectious optimism, this infectious confidence that left almost anybody who came into touch with him, those who were meeting him for the first time, those who knew him well, feeling better after any encounter. And part of it was this charisma, this charm, but it was also very much a sort of can-do attitude that left one with a sense of whatever issue one had come to discuss with him, that this can be managed, we will succeed.
Now, who was Sergio? Sergio Viera de Mello was his name. In addition to being Brazilian, he was described to me before I met him in 1994 as someone who was a cross between James Bond on the one hand and Bobby Kennedy on the other. And in the UN, you don't get that many people who actually manage to merge those qualities. He was James Bond-like in that he was ingenious. He was drawn to the flames. He chased the flames. He was like a moth to the flame, something of an adrenaline junkie. He was successful with women. He was Bobby Kennedy-like because in some ways one could never tell if he was a realist masquerading as an idealist or an idealist masquerading as a realist, as people always wondered about Bobby Kennedy and John Kennedy in that way. What he was a decathlete of nation building, of problem solving, of troubleshooting in the world's worst places and in the world's most broken places.
Sergio really did recognize the human dignity in everyone and paid respect to the human dignity in everyone. Even the worst human rights offender, he would treat with incredible civility and pay respect to that person's individual dignity. And that William Shawcross used to joke that Sergio's autobiography would be called War Criminals, My Friends, because he inevitably approached war criminals, and I saw that on many occasions, as if they were friends. And paying dignity to the human in all allowed him to win concessions that people who would have had a more confrontational or more judgmental approach never would have managed.
Sergio was in Beirut when the US Embassy was hit by the first ever suicide attack against the United States. From Lebanon, he went to Bosnia in the 90s. The issues were, of course, ethnic sectarian violence. He was the first person to negotiate with the Khmer Rouge. Talk about evil prevailing. I mean, here he's in the room with the embodiment of evil in Cambodia. He negotiates with the Serbs. He actually crosses so far into this realm of talking to evil and trying to convince evil that it doesn't need to prevail, that he earns a nickname, not Sergio, but Serbio, while he's living in the Balkans and conducting these kinds of negotiations. He then goes to Rwanda and to Congo in the aftermath of the genocide, and he's the guy who has to decide, okay, the genocide is over, 800,000 people have been killed. The people responsible are fleeing into neighboring countries, into Congo, into Tanzania. I'm Sergio, I'm a humanitarian. I want to feed those, I don't want to feed the killers, but I want to feed the 2 million people who are with them. So we're going to go, we're going to set up camps, and we're going to supply humanitarian aid. But the killers are within the camps. Well, I'd like to separate the sheep from the wolves. Let me go door to door to the international community and see if anybody will give me police or troops to do the separation. And the response, of course, was no more than we wanted to stop the genocide and put our troops in harm's way to do that, nor do we now want to actually get in the way and pluck genocidaire from camps. So then you have to make the decision, do you turn off the international spigot of life support and risk 2 million civilian lives? Or do you continue feeding the civilians knowing that the genocidaire are in the camps literally sharpening their knives for future battle? What do you do? It's all lesser evil terrain in these broken places.
One thing Sergio always did was he made sure that there was at least 1 or 2 people close to him on whom he could rely for constant, candid, and very outspoken disagreement with just about everything he did. He had, none of the insecurities of some senior leaders. He liked to be questioned. He liked to have his assumptions treated with skepticism. He liked to being accused that he was perhaps being too pragmatic in some cases. He liked to hear the counter-arguments. And sometimes he would change, often he wouldn't. But he wanted to know that, and he really appreciated that. he did not surround himself by any means, at least in his immediate circle, with yes people. Quite to the contrary. He sought out people who really were likely to contradict him.
But I want to close with what I take to be the 4 lessons from Sergio's life. What do we take away? First, I think, is his relationship to, in fact, evil is something to learn from. Be in the room. Don't be afraid of talking to your adversaries, but don't bracket what happened before you entered the room. Don't black box history. Don't check your principles at the door. Second takeaway from Sergio's life, briefly, what I take away, and this in some ways is the most important, he espoused and exhibited a reverence for dignity that was really, really unusual. Third point, very briefly, he talked a lot about freedom from fear. In times of fear, one of the things Sergio used to say is fear is a bad advisor. Fourth and final point, he somehow, because he was working in all the world's worst places and all lesser evils, had a humility, of course, and an awareness of the complexity of the world around him. I mean, such an acute awareness of how hard it was, how Sisyphean this task was of mending, and yet aware of that complexity, humbled by it, he wasn't paralyzed by it.
I mean, I would completely endorse what Samantha wrote. He saw the UN very much in the service of we the peoples, and very much in the service of we the peoples who lacked peace and security, who lacked access to development, whose human rights were not respected. So going back to we the peoples and asking them, how do you see us reviving the international mechanisms to better meet global challenges, I think would have been very much part of his vision, and he would have seen the sense in it completely, and he would have been pained, I think, about the deficit of international cooperation at the moment and the loss of sense of common purpose. But sadly, we'll never know exactly what sort of Secretary General that Sergio would have made, but he still inspires many in the UN, and I believe he was also a friend and a model for this Secretary General.
Hello everyone, my name is Liz Crowther, and it is my privilege to pay the last and perhaps the most important tribute of this anniversary programme. For this is the tribute to the tens of thousands of unsung heroes and heroines who have worked for the UN in the last 75 years, in far-flung places, often in considerable discomfort, and often, as we've heard, at great personal risk. Because most of the people that we've talked about so far have been men, this tribute is going to be all about women. Not because the male UN servants are unimportant, no, but because us women hold up half the sky, right? And in fact, the UN, in its first 75 years, has given great practical thought leadership to gender equity in its hiring policies, in its sharing of leadership roles, and in all its policy statements and recommendations. These are not women that you will ever have heard of. You wouldn't recognize them on the street, but these women are in the business of saving lives and defending rights, just as much as the great heroes that we've heard about. Women like Flora Makula, one of the 17,000 staff members of the UN High Commission for Refugees, set up to care for the world's 79.5 million refugees. Flora was born a refugee during the Balkan Wars. She likens being a refugee to being a tree forcefully uprooted and replanted on barren soil. And she sees her job as enriching the soil and focusing on the recovery of the trees. She says, after 2 decades in this sector, I still have the fire in me to work tirelessly in emergency situations such as this Rohingya crisis. Though I am now working for refugees, I will always remember what it felt like to be one. All humans carry their history with them. I know I do. Or Rekha Akhtar, a driver for the UN's World Food Programme, which feeds 100 million people a year, mostly in countries at war. Rekha was married at 13. Her husband died in a road accident in Saudi Arabia while she was pregnant with her second son. And the stigma attached to being a widow can be devastating. So Rekha immediately started looking for work. She sold off her jewelry and her bed to pay to be trained as a UN driver. And she was good at it and was soon offered a contract. She says, for the past 18 years, I have traveled around Bangladesh and trained other female drivers. It has given me immense satisfaction and pride to have built a dignified, self-made life for my children and myself. But there are costs. A lot of the time, my work keeps me far away from my children. However, the struggles I've encountered makes me feel connected to the struggles of the hungry and all the other people that we work for. Anika Tanjim-Konok works as an education officer for UNICEF. She says, I share a common goal with all humanitarians. We all work towards bringing a positive change for the communities we serve and the hope for a better future. When I saw Rohingya children in need of support, I thought about my 2 little sisters and the role I played in their upbringing. I realized that Rohingya children are no different to children anywhere else in the world. They want to play and get into mischief, they want to learn, and they want to have the same opportunities as everyone else. Happiness can be gained from so many different places, but happiness that comes from putting smiles on the faces of Rohingya children is something beyond imagination and something worth living for. Now, meet Gloria Kiridi from Eldoret in Kenya, who works on rolling out the World Food Programme's digital platform, Scope. Her smile says it all. I've always had a passion for technology, she says. The excitement in the faces of the people when they first use their Scope cards and start accessing food in stores makes me feel happy and fuels my energy to do more. I digitalize systems for humanitarian assistance, a field where there are only a few women. However, I have witnessed how we can change lives through technology. So I hope that more women will join me in this dual field of technology and humanitarian relief. I could go on. I could talk about the peacekeepers, the 3,928 individuals who have lost their lives in the service of the UN. But You can't drive forward looking in a rearview mirror. And we must look forward to face the challenges that we face in the present and in the future. But think about those heroes and heroines we've looked at. They were your age once. Might you be one of the future UN heroes or heroines of the next 75 years? You could be. Think about it.
My name is Stas Namin. Our theatre is in Gorky Park of Moscow. More than 30 years ago, with David Woolcombe from London and Steve Riffkin from San Francisco, we did the play Peace Child. And now we're doing a second part, Strike. It's about the most important problems of survival of human beings, survival of our civilization. The song we're going to present is Revolt. Last 75 years, the only organization in the world who can really help us to survive is United Nations. And today is your birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Большой талант всегда тревожит и жаром головы кружа. Не на мятеж похож, быть может, а на начало мятежа. Живешь расхваленно и ладно, живешь у Бога мельтеша. Примером, что конец таланта есть невозможность мятежа. I hear the silent scream of children. I see the blank-eyed men with guns. My poet's heart cries out in anger. Would silence mean my talent's done? And I woke up and raged and angry. I broke the surface and I cried. I heard the screams of pain, of darkness. My poems mean they never die. My poems mean they never die. I take the pen and write my anger, my war and scream anthem from the page. The background bullies wields in terror, the anti-Semites roam my rage. The world forgets, the grass grows over, the bastards killed and got away. In all those years I slept in comfort, I felt my colors turning gray. I'm every child that died in Auschwitz. I'm every widow of Katyn. My walls explode and light the darkness. I'm dead protesting Bobby R. And I woke up and raged and angry. I broke the surface and I cried. I heard the screams of pain, of darkness. My poems mean they never die. Mean my poems never die. Mean my poems never die. Mean my poems never die.
I hate the UN. I mean, I really hate the UN. Bad business. Bad for my business. I mean, we have had some small wars over the last 75 years. A few thousand killed, a few billion spent. But big wars, world wars, wars a soldier could really get his teeth into, nothing. And why? Because of the dang UN. That's why. The damn UN always keeping the peace, peacemaking negotiation. UN wants soldiers like me out of jobs. What you need is another war.
Be careful what you wish for. Look, the number of wars and people killed by them is going up, and last year saw the biggest increase in military spending in a decade.
Good. Great for my business.
No, it's terrible for business. Spending $6.5 billion on UN peacekeeping and nearly $2 trillion, 300 times more, preparing for wars that nobody wants, that's insane. Worse, China's rattling sabers over Taiwan again. The only remaining nuclear arms treaty between the USA and Russia runs out in February. We could be looking at another arms race.
Come on, raid the hounds. An arms race is the best possible thing for my business, boy.
But terrible for everyone else's security. Let's see what our UN 75th Anniversary Festival Peace and Security Workshop came up with.
There was a time when the UN insignia afforded people working for the UN some protection in the field, the way that the Red Cross symbol should provide protection to humanitarian workers of the Red Cross. Unfortunately, what we've seen is more and more situations, not just Iraq, where the UN has become a target.
Positive peace can be easily understood as a society that's free from the structural problems that would lead its citizens to resort to violent action. Or, in layman's terms, violence is rendered unnecessary because there are no issues to fight over. For example, if human rights are upheld, society is functioning well, and citizens are generally happy, a peaceful environment prospers naturally.
I went back to East Timor last year for the 20th anniversary of the self-determination referendum, and I'd had the privilege of heading the mission that ran that referendum. And in East Timor, Timor-Leste as it is today, the UN is viewed extremely positively, particularly because of its role in enabling the independence vote in very difficult security circumstances, also because of the role that Sergio Viera de Mello played as transitional administrator in the immediate transition to self-government after the independence vote. So there are places where the role the UN has played is recognised and positively recognised.
East Timor. The UN is popular in East Timor. You can have East Timor. Just leave me the big, serious countries. Nobody loves the UN there. The people love military, parades, army bands. All the ladies love a soldier. They hate the UN, okay? Hell, most of the big countries are always late paying the UN with their dues. They ain't even got a leg to stand on. No, my friend, your UN is over.
You're right. Now is a challenging time for the UN. But the UN does much more than peacekeeping. 100 million people will go to bed tonight with food in their bellies because of the UN's World Food Program.
Well, maybe the UN can find a role in the Army Catering Corps. We need some good cooks.
But our food systems are under threat as well. Right now, we're failing to feed 7 billion people. And by the end of this century, we'll need to feed 10 billion. Let's see what our food security workshop came up with to deal with that.
If current trends continue, we will need to have 42% more land by 2050 in order to produce our food. And by all good estimates, there is no new land available. And the reason why we need to do that is because the diet that we currently consume, which is high in animal products, takes a lot of land to produce. So we've all heard about the kind of land impacts of beef, but even chicken, you wouldn't think that it takes that much land to grow chicken. But actually, when you consider the grain that it takes to feed the chicken and the land it takes to grow that grain, then suddenly that land footprint becomes much, much bigger.
Our food system not only affects us every time we eat, every single day, and when we sit around the table with whoever we sit around, whether it's our family or our community or sitting on our own, it also affects our whole future. You know, it's an absolute foundational part of the planetary crisis we're facing right now. And if we can't do something about reversing that, then we're reversing, those nice dinners on the table for our grandchildren and their grandchildren and the generations after that. So we've got to do something about it, and people have to be educated about it and really act on it.
Oh, so eating meat is a crime now. you people. A soldier needs meat to fight. We need the protein. We can't get by on salads and muesli.
You may have to. Perhaps the biggest problem the world faces today is inequality. A tiny percentage living like you with your meat, your cars, your foreign holidays, and the rest of the world barely getting by. Is that fair?
Whoever said the world needs to be fair? It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. And look, the military provides jobs. It puts food on my table. And look, what brought America out of the Great Depression? Second World War. Millions of jobs spent making weapons, munitions, sending war bonds. Wars put food on the table.
That's such rubbish. War is the worst thing for any economy. I'm sure our economist security workshop didn't suggest war as a solution to youth unemployment. Let's see what they did come up with.
The other issue is about, well, should we just do the universal basic income that's been talked about? And there's no doubt at all that you need social protection. That's absolutely clear. But again, what the young people have said to us in the surveys we're doing, it's that it doesn't answer the question. We don't just want to get enough money to survive. We want to have meaning in our lives. We want to contribute to the community. We want to be seen as somebody, having status. And actually work generally is the thing that actually gives you that positioning, really. But at the moment, we still have no really good understanding of how we create jobs well in those countries. Even the World Bank says probably only 400 million jobs could be created in the next 10 years. 1 billion need jobs. So what happens to the other 600 million? There is something we have to do, which is a big, big problem, which is to understand again that we are one globe and we were all in this together, not just COVID, but climate change and everything else.
The infrastructure of how we all work together across the world has never been more vital, and it's never been more fragile. And I think one thing I'd really like to leave us all with today is a sense that investing energy in the regimes and the institutions that bind together underneath the umbrella of the UN is absolutely vital for all the challenges that we've talked about today.
So a big job to be done, but I wouldn't be negative. I think those young people out there have got it and can get us there.
Invest energy in the institutions that bind us together. That's what we need, my friend.
Yeah, but the UN is not going to create 400 million jobs, is it? Expanding the military-industrial complex, giving America full system-wide dominance, making America really, well and truly great again, that will create jobs.
Or kill them.
What?
Wars kill people, remember? A nuclear war could kill every living thing on the planet.
Oh my God. It'll never come to that. Yeah, wars kill a few people. Yeah, okay. But remember the Spanish flu? Y'all know that Spanish flu killed more people than the First World War killed soldiers. And that was 50 million.
The current pandemic is nowhere near that level. But aren't you pleased that we have the UN agency coordinating all the best ideas on how to deal with this health emergency? Let's see what ideas came out of our health security workshop.
We know that if people move early with prevention or early action or intervention, it pays off. It pays off for individuals, for communities, for nations, and the world. It pays off for pandemics. It pays off for mental health and for physical disease. So we know that it can be done and it should be done. We've seen how telemedicine platforms can help access, and indeed digital can leapfrog and complement other systems.
We've talked about the the benefits that can be had from learning from others. So the benefits of shared knowledge between countries. Often that can be forgotten we talk about medical education and how traditionally that focuses only on Western medical education, but talks about the benefits of learning from others on an international scale and the exchange of good practices between countries and setting standards like minimum safety standards for healthcare practices as well.
This needs to start with good education in schools. Schools don't address infection and pandemics routinely. They don't address prevention of ill health, nor do they address mental health. We heard many examples locally of things that work and help people. And let me just pick up the friendship bench to support people with mental health problems, and how in this time of a pandemic, it has been made digital so that the support and the help can be ongoing. Isn't that an inspiring story?
Y'all think I'm mad, don't you?
I think you're a bit mad, yes. To think that any of the most pressing problems of today can be solved by the military, your weapons are about as much use in solving those problems as a jackhammer would be to a watchmaker.
Y'all talking about the environment, climate change and all that nonsense. Planting forests. Why don't we pick some daisies, huh? That's not where power comes from. Power comes out of the barrel of a gun.
The gun has no power over nature. The biggest battle we have to fight right now is to ensure we conserve a viable planet to pass on to our children and grandchildren.
So why haven't you done it? Huh? Why haven't you done it yet? You greeny, meeny patsies. You all been nominated for moaning on and on about the environment for these last 50 years. So why ain't you any closer to cracking the problem? Huh?
Well, let's see if our environment security workshop answered that question.
My question to the elder panel would be, why is it, do you think, that previous generations haven't cared as much as possibly they should have, or haven't taken as much action as they should have in order to move us along to achieving a sustainable future?
We haven't done enough because we haven't shifted the values of people. We've tried to make these environmental arguments work at a time when an awful lot of people were either ignorant or indifferent as to the state of the planet. We tried to do it during a period of capitalism, which was almost uniquely vicious in terms of extracting wealth from people, communities, and of course the planet. Try to do it in such a way as not to engage people in deeper issues about the meaning of life and values and the relationship between ourselves and the natural world, etc., etc. So it is that values dimension now, which I think is going to come to the fore, because you can't just argue this from a technocratic, technological point of view. We have to dig deep into what it is that makes life special for human beings and all human beings, because we are, of course, talking about a just transition for the whole of humankind.
Education is probably the biggest driver towards a green economy. I think without educating young people, not enough will be done. And I think the burden of climate change will pass down to younger people. So I think it's so important that we're educated sufficiently and accurately as well. You know, there's lots of news going around that isn't necessarily accurate. So I think adequate education is really important.
So, there you have it. What we need is a new set of values. Values in education.
I mean, that is what I fight for. Values, freedom, democracy, the rule of law.
A clean environment, health, education, human rights for all.
Yeah, that's right. That too.
I don't think you're mad. The UN needs people like you.
Really? I mean, I'm just a grunt. I'm just a grunt, me. Thick as two planks. But I am loyal, I am courageous, and I'll follow orders to get the job done. Bet on that.
And that's what the UN needs right now. Loyal, courageous public servants leading a global army to save our planet and its precious resources for future generations. Will you join us?
A global army? That does sound interesting, I must admit.
A global army fighting for the future we want.
Future we need to protect us and our values.
Will you join my global army and fight for our future?
Well, sure. God is my witness, I say sure, man. Thank you. I'm going to help. I'll help you out.
All the time, through the day, through the night, I think about to live in this world. So many times I've tried to find a way to live my life, a way to ease my mind. Wiem, że świat może zgasnąć na zawsze, a winny temu każdy z nas. Niech ci, co żyją, kochają i tworzą, usłyszą płacz wśród drzew i traw. We want this world to survive forever, and all the people join their hands together in a bond of love, kindness, and friendship. We'll have peace here with the earth. Round